Thanks for joining me on About Alberta Tech, which is focused on introducing Alberta tech companies to Albertans. Our goal is to share the innovation and diversity that exists in this province in quick bites. My name is Lenora Thomas, and today I'm joined by Jeff LaFrenz, President of VizworX. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. I really look forward to this.
So let's start with some background on you. How did you get into tech?
So I started actually as a child taking apart toasters and, you know, the regular things that kids do when they're into the tech space, I suppose. And then when I went and I did all the kind of classical things in high school and so on, all the kind of techie, sciencey type stuff. And in university went into engineering and did a degree in electrical engineering with a minor in computer engineering, and then an advanced degree in electrical engineering as well. So my start in tech was basically from my education and my attitude. And then ultimately, when I graduated from that, I joined a company out in Vancouver called McDonald Detweiler Associates, or MDA, which most people would be familiar with from things like the Canada arm on the space station, and satellite systems for remote monitoring of the ocean, or sort of the world. I worked on things like air traffic control systems, so I designed the hardware systems that are involved in all the air traffic control in Switzerland, as an example. But I helped design systems for ocean monitoring for military use, for basically mine countermeasures, and all sorts of very kind of cool projects that are pushing the boundaries of science and tech. Was my original background and my introduction into this tech world. That
is so cool. Did you actually get to go out and see any of them in use?
Well, I spent during the project, as an example, with air traffic control. So I was in Switzerland a number of times working with them on the transition of the old system to the new system, and really working with them to understand how they use these systems and how they develop. And you can imagine, right, the transition process from what they have to the next system coming in place is not just we turn off the switch on that and turn on the switch on the next one. There's a massive work involved in transitioning this to make sure that there's no risk of for the planes or passengers. So now this is many years ago. I'm sure they've changed that system by now, because that was quite a few decades ago that I worked on that. But that was the kind of stuff that we worked on. And yeah, and the military systems and remote satellites. I was down in Brazil on one of these projects, installing a satellite ground station there for remote sensing and monitoring of the basically of the whole of Brazilian's economy when it comes to agriculture and the rainforests and all this kind of stuff. So it's the kind of systems and stuff I worked on.
Those are massive. My goodness. Okay. And so how did you transition from that to VizworX?
Oh, a few different things. So from the beginning, I was always very much entrepreneurially oriented, and and even from my first company when I was with NDA, we as a group of friends were thinking about how we can start a new company, and so we did various things around that. None of them ultimately successful, but we learned a lot in the process, and so that was kind of the starting point for that. And ultimately, somewhere along the way, I did start a company with another friend. There's a whole other story on that one, and I've been involved in early stage, or at least starting up companies in a few different places. But after I left NDA, I actually went and worked for a company called Sierra Wireless, and this was in the very early days of what's now thought of as public data. So it's the data on your cell phone. Of course, that wasn't always there. Prior to data becoming available, it was all analog, and for those of you who are old enough to remember this, analog modems, when we used to have, literally, I think I've got one kicking around here somewhere still, an old acoustic coupling modem, where you used to have the modem, you take the old phone that, looks something like this one here, and you would put it down on the modem, and that's how you would connect into the systems. We went from that to now where data is just an easy thing. Everybody is engaged in part of data, and Sierra Wireless was really at that early stages of developing and deploying technology to support public access to data. And so I joined them to run their pre-sales support group, really, which was around how do we help clients understand the technology that's involved in transforming their business and getting away from a private radio system, which is what a lot of them used to use, into a public data system of some sort. And so I was working with all the telecom providers, working with device manufacturers. We were a device manufacturer ourselves in that regard. And so we were evangelizing and basically bringing data into the public realm. And so prior to that, there was literally no data on cell phones. Cell phone was just for calling
Yeah.
people. That's all you could do with a cell phone. Now they're ubiquitous. We have them. Everybody's got one in their pocket, pretty much, or on in their purse or pocket or wherever they carry this silly thing.
Yeah.
And so so we've got all these kind of things happening, and little things like what we think of now as why wouldn't you have a camera in your phone? Well, at some point in time, and we were actually at that stage where, why would you want a camera? The thought of a camera actually came out. There's a few different things going on there, but one of the reasons why that camera actually came out is that the infrastructure providers like the Teluses and so on of the world had built out this infrastructure for data, and they had massive over amounts of bandwidth that weren't being utilized. And so they were looking for applications that could actually use some of this bandwidth. And so that was one thing going on at that time. The device manufacturers in the meantime are thinking, what can we do? What can we build? And so on. And somebody came up with the bright idea. Well, if we put a camera into the phone, people are going to take pictures, and then they're going to want to send those pictures, and that's going to consume bandwidth. And so that's a great thing from the from the telecom provider and from the device manufacturer, and so is the origin of cameras in our phones.
It makes total sense, actually.
And now you can't imagine not having a camera in your phone, but it just started at some point, and we were in those days. That's what we were doing. So yeah, we weren't on the camera side, mind you, but we were in the industry at the time when that kind of thing was happening. So.
Okay, and so then you transitioned over to VizworX after that?
Well, no, so it's a longer history than that. So yeah, so what my stint at Sierra Wireless taught me about was business, really. So McDonald Detweiler really taught me all the technology, systems engineering, project management, those kind of things. My stint at Sierra Wireless really taught me about business development activities, because I literally spent 3 to 4 weeks a month on the road, different cities every day, traveling around, meeting clients, engaging with clients, and really helping move business forward. And yeah, it's a brutal travel schedule, and it's a great experience, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's really critical, hard in your life, shall we say. But once leaving there, I worked for a short stint down in the valley, and then the whole telecom industry went bust. This is around kind of the 2000-ish time frame. Then the whole dot-com bubble burst. And so telecom industry basically went from, if you're breathing, we want to hire you, to, okay, you're one of thousands, stand in line, maybe we'll think about you. And so I decided at that point, okay, I'm going to shift my career into another passion I had, which is biology. And so I went to do a PhD in bio-nanotechnology and study respiratory passage diagnostics. And this is actually at the time when the SARS outbreak occurred. So it's kind of feels comfortable, or that's not the right word, but it feels familiar right now with this whole stuff going on. And so I went through that whole process of learning about bio-nanotechnology and study respiratory pathogens and figuring out how we can identify them more rapidly. But then this other tech company that I'd built with a friend of mine, he got quite ill. And so I had to make a decision. Do I finish this PhD and let that company die, or do I go back to the company and run it? And so I ultimately ended up going back to the company and running it and abandoning that PhD. And so I went back, ran it, we sold it off. And then I came back to university, helped for a while developing entrepreneurial education programs in the university, and then through a number of different things that I did, I ultimately came to work with one of the research group, was a Cost Canada research network called SurfNet, really focused on this area of advanced technologies and this human element of advanced technologies, and how do we convey information in ways that's more human natural, so that the comprehension and decision making capabilities is increased. So that research network I worked with for a number of years, and out of that one that we spun VizworX. And so in fact, I joined them with exactly that point in mind, which was to find opportunities to move the kind of advanced knowledge that was being generated here out into commercial practice. And so VizworX comes out of that route. So that's kind of the long convoluted path to get to where we are today, basically. Yeah.
Sounds fun though. Okay, so what does, sorry.
It's certainly fun, that is for sure. There's so many things going on, and we love what we do.
Which is exactly what you want. Okay, so what does VizworX do?
So broadly speaking, as I said, we really deal with this human element of data. And so we work with a variety of clients in a variety of industries where they have critical business needs that are not being addressed by their current solutions or current solutions that are in the marketplace. And we work with them to create solutions to really address those problems. And I think of this more as a partnership relationship with our partners in this case, and that we really want to be part of helping them address their business problems and creating the solutions collaboratively with them to make sure that it really does address their business needs. So That's a large portion of what we do as a company. And in doing so, we work with, the soup to nuts of advanced tech, from augmented and virtual reality and artificial intelligence and data viz and kind of all these kind of cool tech. But our focus is really on helping with our partners and solving the problems that they have, and really that kind of focus. But in the process of doing that, we also identify business problems that are broader than a single client. And where we have the opportunity and it fits with our capabilities, we turn that into a product incubation process. And so an example of that is work we did originally with Synovus back in a few years ago now anyway, in the early days of when immersive augmented reality first became available with the Microsoft HoloLens. And really that was around an issue they had where they were building infrastructure and trying to deploy this infrastructure in a modular format. But when they got it on site, it wasn't always assembling properly. And there was some issues with the way that the construction and the factory was building it, and translation of design into manufacturing, essentially. So working with them in immersive technologies, we really kind of found a way to help them address that. But in the process of doing that, identified that this is a broad issue in industry. And in fact, the statistics show that somewhere between 5 to 30% of the cost of a typical construction project is in rework. When you think there's $3 trillion-ish spent every year around the world in this construction of industrial, commercial, and governmental space, you have hundreds of billions to $1 trillion of wasted money every year in construction, a large portion of which is due to errors in design that get through into the construction phase. And so by really kind of leveraging what we learned in this engagement with Synovus and applying it to this much bigger problem that industry as a whole has, we came up with a technology we call Panoptica. And essentially what this allows, it's a variety of different things. And again, it uses immersive technologies and so forth, and data visualization and so forth. But the essence of what it accomplishes is basically giving people the ability to understand what they're building the same way they would understand it when it's actually under construction, and including the spatial understanding of how things are related to each other, which is one of the big reasons why you don't notice these errors until construction very typically. But give all that capability while they're doing it in digital model. And really kind of be a model review solution. It's covered the gamut of everything you need to know and how to do a model review from the starting point of when you're thinking about a design all the way through to, okay, we've completed, let's hand it over to construction for them to build it. So really be that kind of center point around model reviews, and that's what Panoptica is. And that's a technology we just spun out into a new company called InsureWorks, so a subsidiary of VizworX now called InsureWorks.
Wow, that's very cool. Okay, so when you kind of told me why you started VizworX, but why did you choose Alberta?
Well, that's where I was born. I'm being a little facetious, but I mean, there's a seriousness to that. I mean, this is literally where I was born. This is where I was brought up. I have a strong love of this province and the people and what we can accomplish here. And I believe very strongly in the attitudes that exist here around we can do it. We run into challenges, we'll figure out a way and we'll make it happen. And that's really been a large reason why, when I thought about this whole thing and this initiative, it started here. It started here. I wasn't actually living here before I came back to join yours. So as I said, I was in Vancouver for a number of years and I was down in the Valley briefly, but this was home and this is where I really wanted to move things forward. And so I came back to Alberta to see what I could do here.
Which, yay.
And now we're doing amazing things, absolutely. Yeah, and
exactly.
What's funny in kind of a strange sort of way is that we get people coming to us and saying, I didn't know there was a company like this in Alberta, in Calgary. They keep thinking of this as a company that would exist only in the Valley or in some other location, but no, it's here. It's here in Calgary, and we're doing these amazing things here in Calgary. And we're leveraging the massive industrial base that we have here to do things that are globally relevant in the technology space. And so there's tremendous benefits from that perspective to be able to work here in Alberta and to be able to work with the companies and the industries that exist here.
They make for great partners because they do have that size and they do have that need, that pain point that has to be solved, which is fantastic.
There's absolutely there's some challenges too, and I don't know if you want to get into the challenges, but there's always challenges with the large company, small company type dynamics, of course, that exist there. But absolutely, once you get past that and you can work with them, the kind of challenges they're running into here, if we can solve those challenges, those are not unique to here, and so we can build up opportunities and capabilities here that we can then apply everywhere in the world.
Which I think, just based on the examples you gave, we can definitely do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what are you growing towards with VizworX and your new offshoot?
really, coming back to what I said, we really see that what we have created here is the capability for creating industrially relevant solutions that have global opportunities associated with them. And we're headquartered here in Alberta and want to do that. So we're building up a global company headquartered in Alberta that's going to be able to provide solutions all over the world. And that's really what we're building. That's where we're going with this company, and with the various subsidiaries and other related groups that we're doing. And I should really be, say as well, this is an ecosystem. We are already engaged with discussions with other technology companies around how do we partner for going after bigger initiatives, and how do we support each other and grow the ecosystem locally here, because we have some amazing companies here that nobody actually hears about unless you're in the tech space, and even then you don't always hear about them. And thanks to you for putting together things like this, because this is a challenge. We need to communicate effectively, what it is we're doing here and the amazing things we're accomplishing here, and those, they exist here. And so if we can leverage that and kind of build this ecosystem and show the global capabilities that we've developed here, we have the opportunity to create not only global opportunities, but a parallel ecosystem and an economic driver within the province itself.
Which I would love to see.
As would I. I'm building it, so we'll hopefully
exactly.
be part of it. Yeah.
Okay. What else do you think that our community should know about you and VizworX?
That we're very much engaged in the community. I myself, personally, I volunteer in a number of different things. I was, until January, chair of the engineering alumni for Schulich because of my own educational background there. Still on the industry advisory council for Schulich. I am involved with CRIN, the Clean Resource Innovation Network. This is an industry-led network of networks headquartered here in Alberta, but dealing with the Canadian-wide energy industry, and particularly oil and gas side of the energy industry, and looking at how we make the industry more environmentally responsible as we continue to transition towards new technologies and so on. So CRIN is a broad network of different groups, and I lead the digital theme within this network of groups as a volunteer activity I'm doing. And so we're very much part of this. We were part of, although we didn't initiate it, we were certainly part of Rainforest as it was evolving and growing. For anybody who's in Alberta, you'll be familiar with in the tech ecosystem, you know about Rainforest and what's going on there, and the great vision of Brad and Jim and so forth who started it. So there's, we really are part of this, and we really want to make sure the overall ecosystem and the community strives and thrives. So,
well, keep it up and keep up the great work on both the volunteer side of things as well as the business side, because that's certainly what we need.
Thank you. No, I mean, but it's all part and parcel to me. It's all part of the same thing. We're all trying to, improve the way that we do business here, and part of it is volunteerism, part of it's business, but it's all interleaved in some sense, and towards this ultimate goal of really improving the ecosystem for technology and really showing the massive capabilities we have for technology in Alberta and what we can do with that in the world.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much as well for doing this.